Hi everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 285 of Album of the Day. I know it's been a little while since I've done a review. It's because, I've been a little busy with my schoolwork, and also I have been busy putting together my first ever episode of my Album of the Day podcast. It should be uploaded around the time this video was posted. If not, we'll whenever that podcast is out, please make sure to check that out. It's an interview I did with Phoebe Bridgers, and it was a lot of fun shooting my first episode. So so if that video is up by now, be sure to check that out, and hope you enjoy our conversation that we had on my first ever episode of the Album of the Day podcast. But without further ado, let's get to an album review. So this is my first review of a 2021 album, finally getting around to this. So today's artist is a singer-songwriter from Shreveport, Louisiana, who is kind of doing something that a kind of crossover I've never really covered before on this channel, which is blurring the lines between country and hip-hop, and obviously also working with other sounds too, but a very genre-bending artist known as Willie Jones, and I'm here to review his debut full-length album, which came out on January 22nd, 2021, and the album is called Right Now. This is a record I've been looking forward to covering for a little while. Of course, I kind of told you who Willie Jones is. I did not know who he was until listening to NPR's All Songs Considered and hearing them talk about this new record, and I thought it sounded really interesting, kind of how he is, how he's, a black man from Shreveport, Louisiana, who is definitely sort of doing that little crossover where he's fusing, banjos and kind of twangy country elements with, sort of a hip-hop and kind of trap atmosphere. And also, spoiler alert, he also does, these little freestyles on, for the bridges of some of these songs as well. So, I just thought he sounded like a pretty interesting artist, and I became curious to hear the rest of the record. And let me say, upon listening to this record, I knew it was probably going to be pretty interesting, crossover, but I didn't know that I'd be having this much fun with it, or hell, even taking it seriously enough that I'd want to do a review of it, because this record certainly is just so much fun, and he and these little genre crossovers and combos that he is doing on this record just pan out incredibly well. The opening track, Country Soul, sort of gives the listener a little teaser as to what to expect, and it's got a pretty diverse range of elements. It's got twangy guitars, gospel organs, skittering trap drums, kind of very much also kind of a gospel feel to the background vocals, the na 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 na. It's definitely kind of shamelessly southern in terms of its sound, but very much so in a good way. And I do really like how this is the record where Willie's sort of introducing himself, and also that he enjoys a lot of different kinds of music. Hell, he even name drops a few of his influences in the second verse, including Tim McGraw, T.I., Marvin Gaye, and Aerosmith, sort of showcasing that he is really into country and hip hop, but also soul and R&B, and obviously rock as well. And I do really like the little like playful inflections he has in the vocals as he's name dropping people. Like, in the line where he's name dropping Aerosmith, he's doing what kind of sounds like, it's kind of like a bit of a vocoder or maybe talk box effect on a guitar or something. Like, definitely an element of camp in there, but definitely something that very much works. Also, the hook is incredibly catchy. I love the melody and the rhythm on there. Like, yeah, it's just pretty fire. A pretty fantastic way to open the record. Then we have the song "Back Porch," which very tastefully sort of fuses kind of laid back country vibes with a bit of a spacey and kind of icy kind of, it's a kind of pop rap atmosphere. Like, there's like little electronic layers that I think blend together so well with the acoustic guitars and the lead vocals. I think the song is definitely one of the most vibrantly hip-hop on the record, which is kind of interesting given that its content definitely screams like a pretty classic country song about, like, relaxing with a drink and maybe with a friend, like on a back porch that has lots of sights to see, and also one of the most addictive hooks on the record too. A pretty cool freestyle on there too. Like, I definitely think the first couple of tracks, the freestyle element gives it this sense of play that, if only, more country music, at least in the mainstream, like, had this kind of sense of play, because unfortunately some of the stuff getting played on the radio is this kind of, feels like, they're not really having any fun and just kind of, doing it to garner Spotify algorithm or something. The rhythm. And then the real party happens with the song Bachelorettes on Broadway, which I think I may have read that kind of the inspiration of the song is like Nashville or something like that being the Bachelorette capital in the U.S. or something like that. I'm going to be real here. I'm not really an expert on this kind of thing but I will say this, the song is a lot of fun. Like, I think the is a lot of fun. I definitely think Willie is definitely once again given kind of that ringmaster effect and sort of a pretty fantastic lead vocal performance, as well as some pretty witty and sometimes very funny lyrics. Like, his freestyle actually has some pretty hilarious, pretty memorable lines on that track, and then also there are the and then also to add to the sense of play, there are these background singers doing these little shouts, and even though I'm not too crazy about the whole "it's a celebration, bitches" like shouts, as I definitely felt that they were maybe a little campier than I would like. Overall, I think the song has plenty of personality, a killer hook, and also the fusion. This is like a pretty legit fusion of bluegrass instrumentation with like a trap beat and maybe some sort of like synth in there as well. The next song, "Down For It," is definitely a much more moving cut on the record. Definitely, a very sweet, kind of cute love song on the record. And yet another song where, like, where the fusion of, acoustic instrumentation and, electronics definitely is very well done. I mean, that moment in the song where I'm getting, like, trap beats mixed so well with, like, fiddle and mandolin and stuff like that, that's a pretty cool, magical moment on the record. And also just a very uplifting chorus as well. And really every song on this record could be a single. Like, I do really like how compartmentalized a lot of this album feels. Like, it kind of feels to me more like a really good collection of singles than really a cohesive album, but hey, I'm definitely okay with that. Then the song American Dream is a song that it is a pretty special moment on the record in that it's definitely the one song where, Willie is delving in pretty deep about, the kind of racial discrimination against black people, and like specifically in the South, where he comes from. He's sort of taken the traditional patriotic country song and literally sort of, given it his kind of whole like Black Lives Matter kind of twist and doing it really damn well with this fusion of haunting guitars, kind of cold trap production, these huge layers of background vocals that are definitely giving me some gospel vibes. I mean, he's like layering his vocals in such a fascinating way on this track, and it may not be the most thought-provoking political song you're gonna hear, but given how conservative country music tends to be, I find it super refreshing that in this case we're seeing not some alternative indie country artist going on this angle like so many have, but instead this is a guy in the mainstream country scene actually talking about this. Like, it definitely is, I definitely got to give it to him. This is quite a risk he took here, and he did it so well. The title track right now is definitely another pretty quality moment on here. This song, I think the transitions between different instrumental passages is really smooth. Like, the way that the first half of the chorus, sounds to me like kind of like Southern rock, and then transitions so smoothly into like yeehaw trap for the second half of the chorus. Even though I do have my issues with this track, especially that the lyrics are a little bit repetitive on this song. Like, it kind of feels, it's one of the less developed tracks lyrically. And I know a lot of the lyrics on this album are actually pretty cliched, and that it definitely is something of a pastiche, but I love the way Willie is really subverting these kind of cliches about, country music and dream music, and about like maybe mainstream country especially. That's kind of the reason I find myself just having a lot of fun with this record. The next song, Trainwreck, Trainwreck, I think is a really cool kind of modern twist on the classic, You Did Me Wrong kind of like breakup song for country music. The banjos mixed with the twangy guitars, as well as the trap beats. I think ends up sounding really smooth, and there are also these gargantuan, like kind of boozy group vocals as well that I think add to the song really well and really make it feel like a party for sure. For sure, and even though the lyrics definitely are pretty straightforward, I really like how genuinely kind of annoyed Willie sounds on this track with this conflict. It's a conflict, and also his little like why like shouts, I think only kind of add to what he's feeling on here. The song Drank Too Much is definitely one of the darker moments on the record. Like, instrumentally, it definitely has this kind of dreary tone to it, and also the violin and the dobro are like actually kind of playing these really weird kind of notes and kind of ringing tones on the track that I don't recall hearing in country of this caliber before. And also the mix of trap drums with like a live drum kit is definitely pretty nice. Even though this is yet another track that I find a little underwhelming because he isn't necessarily making country music cliches like his own on this track. Even though I think he gives off a pretty strong hook on this track, though. The next song, "A Whole Lot of Love," is definitely kind of the point in the record where things I think get maybe a little less country. Like this track sounds like a pretty straightforward Southern gospel track, and I really dig that quality about it. Love the group vocals and the very passionate performance he's given off on this track, and also I do appreciate, really hearing more of like the gospel organs and kind of Willie really delving a little deeper into his musical roots, but still like giving off this very relatable kind of very inspiring piece of music right there. And then the album, or at least the regular version of the album, closes with the song "Actions," which definitely is yet another, not quite country moment on the record. This song, yeah, it's kind of like this really, like, kind of moving and somewhat, endearing piece of, I don't know, it's like a really good power ballad or something like that. It's a gentle, melancholy pianos over a very heartfelt performance from Willie on there. Pretty uplifting chorus as well. And I also do really like the way that the song builds, with these. So it builds with these huge group vocals, and then like the guitars, the bass, and the drums come in for like the second chorus. I do wish the track were maybe a little bit longer, but man, once that second chorus hits, I actually really feel something on this track, and I'm almost moved to tears here because Willie is just delivering so much emotion here with this track. It also sort of feels like this really like inspiring song that'll play maybe at the end of some like really good movie or something like that. So that's the end of the standard edition of the record. However, on streaming services, you can also hear a couple of remixes of the song "Down For It" that features I mentioned he's one of Willie's biggest influences, the rapper T.I. Now, I have nothing against like him, working with one of his musical heroes on this track. And it's certainly, an admirable attempt at trying to sort of give the song "Down For It" kind of a whole new context. However, these remixes don't pan out in all that well. Like, the first one that is produced by, I believe, J.D. Walker is fine. Fine, it's listenable, but like, the kind of bright R&B instrumental is a little bit bland, doesn't really have a whole lot of character to it, and also T.I. just has like no chemistry whatsoever with Willie. Also, some of his bars on the track are kind of ridiculous. It just sort of, it feels like a remix with good intentions, but just not really coming together. Even worse, though, is the other remix of the song featuring production from My Guy Mars, which is essentially, the standard version of the song, but with obnoxiously loud trap beats, as well as basically just kind of that same subpar rap verse from T.I. just kind of slapped on there kind of mindlessly. It definitely is, these remixes are so kind of bizarre and kind of, not really that great, that I've like taken these songs out of my heavy rotation from this record because, really because I've listened to this record quite a bit, like definitely more than I should, because it just was, a lot of fun, and it definitely was probably one of the coolest fusions of country and rap that I've heard, maybe, not just in maybe a little while, but maybe in my entire life. Ever since, the whole Little Nas X craze, I've sort of found myself finding a little deeper appreciation for, kind of this, of like, especially black artists kind of fusing these two worlds of sound together and doing it in a way that sounds very artisanal and, artisanal, and they aren't just, doing it for the hell of it, or anything like that. Anything like that. I get it. This album may not be everyone's cup of tea, It's a cup of tea, and I know this is definitely a bit of a first for me to, cover an album, in this caliber. But hey, this is my channel. I'm gonna do what I want, and in my words, this album is an 8 out of 10 for me. It definitely was a record that I was pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed it. Hopefully maybe you guys will, check out this album and maybe, get out of your comfort zone a little bit, and, just check this thing out, because, I guarantee you're likely going to be surprised by, kind of the genius of this record and of Willie Jones himself. That's my review of the new Willie Jones album right now, and I'll see you for episode 286.